What is up, everybody? Today I'm going to be making a video on why modern games feel soulless. If at any point it feels like I'm reading off a script, it's because I do have a bit of a script here, just some pointers to remind myself so I don't go on too many tangents. I like to get right into my videos, so let's do that. The first thing that leads to a lot of games feeling a bit soulless are a lot of games don't have the same level of explorations as older games did. In a lot of older games, when you went to a village, you could talk to every NPC, enter every building, and a lot of times you'd be rewarded by that, whether it's just funny dialogue, new little quests, just free items, or maybe a chest you have to figure out how to get inside of someone's house, or an inn, for example. This led to really feeling like you're living in that world and like there was meaning to these villages outside of just a place to stop and rest for a few seconds before you go out and kill more monsters or people or whatever, depending on the game you're playing. Another big thing that leads to a lot of modern games feeling pretty soulless is a lack of really good writing for characters, for overall story scenarios, and for side quests. Side quests, especially, used to mean something. When you did them, a lot of side quests could last a whole game long, talking to tons of people, or they could lead you to really care about these random NPCs. And in modern games, you don't get a lot of that. Another thing that happens with these games is just the stories aren't as interesting anymore because they're way too sanitized and they want to throw in, stuff from the modern real world. Think Dragon Age Veilguard, for example, where you're in a huge fantasy world and then they're talking about real world crap. It just takes you out of it, and it's poor writing. We want to be in that world. And this poor writing leads to a lack of escapism, which is a huge, huge motivator for playing video games, is to escape your real life. And character writing especially has taken a hit. A lot of characters in games these days just feel very one note, like they have one or two big traits and that's all their character is. You have the angry character, the always happy character, the sad character, the main character that never talks anymore, or if they do, they're very annoying. And then a lot of games now want to throw in annoying companion characters that never shut up and are always cracking really cringy jokes that no one would ever laugh at. A third major point is that a lot of games are all glamour and no substance, or another way to put it is their quantity over quality. They have all this stuff that on the surface looks really cool, and wow, look at this massive world to explore. Look, I can go fishing, I can go run around here, I can ride a car or an animal or whatever. But then mechanically, every single one of these things is completely shallow. A fishing mini game is just press one button a couple times. The exploration leads to nothing because game developers don't want to have any hidden content. So you explore a whole world and all you ever find is a bunch of nothing. It just kills the mood for games. It doesn't lead to a sense of your time being spent well when you're exploring this massive world. And the best thing you can find is maybe like a small health curative item, when back in the day you could entirely miss huge areas of games or very powerful weapons just because you didn't explore the world. That's not a thing anymore. And then these worlds are so huge that, you can always see within the render distance one or two things to do, and then you go do them. They take 2 seconds because there's nothing to them, and you think, why is there so much crap? Why don't they just cut down the world size, cut down the amount of content they have, and really focus on one or two big things that you can spend much more time on and really feel satisfied doing. The next big point is there's just not a lot of unique new IP anymore. When a lot of stuff comes out anymore, it's just the next Souls-like, and you can tell that it's not really that inspired. Or the next Mario clone, the next, whatever clone. Real, fully unique ideas are kind of dying out because a lot of developers know they can just make something super, super derivative of everything else on the market and it'll sell. A new battle royale, a new gacha game, and they all play the same and they're all super shallow. And I mean, you do occasionally get, something truly new, but a lot of the times it just boils down to this is like that other game, but we have slightly different thing, and they all just aren't worth playing. Once you've played one, you've played them all. Another huge thing is just the flooded market. There's so many video games now. It's hard to pick one and stick to it because you have a huge backlog and you're thinking, well, I've heard this game's great and I've heard this game's great, and right now the one I'm playing, even though everyone else says is great, I'm not enjoying, so maybe I'll just go to the next one. And you might miss out on something great just because you keep switching games so much. There's just too much to play. There's just too many games. There's too much going on in a lot of games too, where there's so many games now where it's just like, we're gonna fill the entire screen with super fast animations and tons of colors, and for a lot of people that's just not fun. Stuff like, Returnal and Soros or whatever, those kinds of games, or like Dead Cells has so much on the screen you can't even tell what's going on most of the time. And for a lot of people that's not fun, but these kinds of games are just really, there's a lot of them right now, and that's one thing that just feels lifeless, because it's like, what am I supposed to be looking at here? It's kind of like the modern art thing where someone throws paint on a canvas. You can call it art, but that doesn't mean people are gonna think it has soul to it. And then a huge one here. You're just so overexposed to games before they release. A lot of the big releases anymore, you see the trailers, so you already know what, the characters in it, some of the story and stuff like that. And then the day it releases, there's already a billion reviews and a billion videos of the entire game already played. And then, you could be actively trying to avoid it. And, I was scrolling on Facebook or whatever too long. And, well, I just saw a video, not just someone saying something happens, but like a video of a character dying or a video of a secret area or whatever. And it's really hard to evade with the internet. And another huge one here is when games get hard, a lot of people will just Google the answers. Where do I go? What do I do? How do I do it? And that just takes the life out of the game. You're not going to feel any accomplishment when you're handed an answer. And finally, and this is honestly the biggest one, is just for a lot of people who, like me, feel gaming is kind of sucky recently, you're not a kid anymore. You just don't have that same sense of wonder because you've seen something like it before. When you were a kid, seeing your first 3D big adventure was amazing. Your first open world game, your first 2D platformer, your first, great story in a game, you remember those and you love them and you're going to think, this is the greatest. Nothing's ever going to beat this. And for you, nothing ever will, because you're not a kid anymore. And you've seen all these things before, so you're not full of wonder anymore. You're going to think, this is cool, but it's not giving me that same feeling of when I saw this story in a game or when I saw this landmark in a game. And you're going to want to be more selective with what games you put your time into. Sometimes, honestly, you don't have time for a lot of the games that come out that want 30, 40, 50, 60 hours, 100 hours sometimes. You know, a lot of people, they have lives outside of gaming. They don't have the time to sit down and play the new big modern release. They just can't. And so you're not going to enjoy it as much when you just have to play tiny little portions of a game. And a lot of the times, games aren't fun in tiny little portions because games aren't made like that anymore. There's this thing, a term a lot of people like to use, especially with Sony, movie games. Modern God of War compared to old God of War. Old God of War had cutscenes and dialogue, but it had a lot of quick gameplay. You could just play for a couple minutes and quit. Now, you're going to be spending, you have 1 hour of game time. You start a game, the first 20 to 30 minutes is just a cutscene, and then you play 5 minutes of the game and you're back into cutscenes. So you just don't have the time anymore, and that's going to make the games feel lifeless. Oh, I'm not even playing anything, so why should I play this? And those are a few of the reasons that modern games just don't feel the same anymore. There's, a lot that goes into it, but these are some of the big ones. And honestly, I personally think that modern gaming kind of sucks. A lot of the stuff that comes out really disappoints me, and I have a hard time buying modern games because of it. So I really took some time to think, why do I think these games suck so much compared to what I grew up with? And those are the reasons. So thank you for watching. Have a wonderful and blessed day, and see you next time.